Welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey. We are live once again as George Pickens does his conference call with media. I'll let you know if there's anything noteworthy from that beyond he's saying all the things he's supposed to be saying, which would be a concern if that was not the case. There's been plenty of speculation, reports, etc. that, hey, maybe the Cowboys aren't done making moves. So will they? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Do you think the Cowboys end up making another notable move before training camp? It is the pinned poll, by the way. I put the bar at signing Malik Hooker-esque. Like, obviously not Hooker himself, potential starter signing. Not cutting the 90th player on your roster and signing someone else that you don't know. That potential starter type of impact there. So, will the Cowboys make a notable move before camp? Y for yes, N for no. 67% voting no. Voting yes. 33% voting no. There's been a lot of players linked in the last 24 hours. Chubb and Hall and Gilmore and some others. We'll get to all those on today's show. Y for yes, N for no. Get those predictions in for me in the comments and the pin poll too. Still about over 2/3 voting yes on that front. This is the super chat menu on today's show. $5 Venmo, you get into the Micah decision pool. Closest date for when he signs / gets traded gets the 50-50 split the pot. I think take home is 15 right now, so plenty of entries in there at this time. Just $5, enter that at WhatGoingDowney on Venmo. Chatsports.com/Micah. You can see all the entries there. We will do the 50-50 split the pot. $10, I will text my wife your baby name submissions. The submission that was yesterday, make sure I read off the proper response there. It was, where did it go? Oh, Joaquin or Angel / Angel. And so the first one sounds like a villain was her response, which I think doesn't sound like a villain at all. And then the other one says Angel is a girl's name. But if it's Angel, it's a boy's name. So, I don't agree with her on those, but that's how it goes. $20 for the Bean Boozled or outright shot. Yeah, it's the Bean Boozleds are bad and stale and everything else. $50 for the beer bong, and we'll crack open one of those. Roman Wolf Gaming, what draft picks do we have left to trade? I think I had the original list somewhere in listicles. I think it's a list 10 if you want to look for it, Stone. Because we did this on the comp pick side, hitting that side, and then it changed because they traded away the third-round pick. So you're not going to have your third-round pick next year. Again, barring additional moves. You have your first, your second. You actually have your fourth, at least for the time being. Yeah, go ahead and push that across because obviously you don't have the third anymore. That's gone. No third. But you have your fifth. You have potentially 2 comp pick fifths as well. A comp pick sixth. A seventh that is probably from the Giants and the Chiefs. There is a lack of clarity if that's your own seventh because you traded one of them away, but you're also getting one from the Giants and from the Chiefs, so uncertainty there. But outside of the third, you have those 9 picks, with the comp picks still projected and things that could potentially change as well. All right, I want you guys to predict the Cowboys' record in 2025. Let me know in the comment section of today's video. Predict the Cowboys' record this upcoming season. I think the over-under, at least it was 7.5 wins, which I think is a low line for the Cowboys, which always seem to be higher because it's Dallas and they get a lot of buzz and it's always kind of factored in for the juice there. But when the quarterback's been healthy, which is a concern, to be fair, they don't really finish below 500. And that goes back to the Romo era too. See, 12-5, 12-5, 13-4, 11-6, 10-7, 10-7, 11-6, 11-6, 11-6, 9-8, 12-5, 9-8, 11-6, 9-8, 11-6, 13-4, 8-9, 13-4. So everyone taking the over on the wins. I mean, I locked it in a while ago at over 7.5. 12-5, 10-7, at least 10 wins. 10-7, 10-7. 11-6, 12-5, 14-2, 5-12, 13-4. The NFL schedule comes out on Wednesday, So we will have the record prediction like Thursday or Friday. So stay tuned for that one. We'll have the full predictions there. Once we it's like I'm supposed to when the home games are, when the road games are, what primetime games do they get on Thanksgiving, everything else there. Probably have another week 7 by, given the way things have gone previously. So predict that Cowboys record for me. Some more 10-8. You had 8-9, now going 10-7 post Pickens trade. 10-7, 14-3, 12-5, 8-9, 8-9 again. So everyone taking the over 7.5. Now we'll do off-season grades, and I still think the single biggest move you made this off-season was your head coach, right? That the biggest thing you did? Has the most impact? So what is your confidence level in Brian Schottenheimer as the Cowboys head coach? I do want honest answers here. Knowing there's, we all probably feel better about it than maybe we did in the moment. I see a 4, a 7, 2, 8, 5, 8, 7, 8, 7, 8, 3, 7. So we get some more wide range of answers here. 7.5, 5, 7.5, 5, it's 50-50, minus 6.9. I guess nice. 6, 6, 10, 6.9, 8 and climbing, 7, 5, 6.9, nice. 7, 10, 21 is in there. 6, 7, 5, 6.9, 9, 7, a 4.8, another 7 in there. 7, 7.5. Optimistic view is 7. So I think 7 is kind of the majority of, at least the plurality on that one. So keep the comments coming. Confidence level in Brian Schottenheimer as the head coach. Scale it 1 to 10 for me in the comment section of today's show. I'm going to do one thing here because this will help answer the upcoming super chat that we've had of late, I should say. Confidence level in Brian Schottenheimer as the Cowboys head coach. 1 to 10 is your scale. I got a super chat coming in from Ryder Kincaid. We'll get to that one here in just a second. He says, let's say we split with Philly, and he means sweep, Washington and the Giants. At some point, you are going to lose against the Giants with your healthy starting quarterback. That hasn't happened since 2016. They have won, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I think it's 15 straight. But the Cowboys have beaten the Giants as long as Dak has been healthy, which is unbelievable. That does not happen. I think the Giants have won 4 times since 2012 against the Cowboys. Unprecedented dominance. So at some point, you're not going to sweep them. Until it happens, I'm going to pick them to sweep them. Like that's my mindset. The Commanders, you had success against them last year. I don't think they're going to be an easy out necessarily. You probably should have swept them the first time with backups in there, which seems noteworthy. But I think if you can at least sweep the Giants, split against the Commanders and Philadelphia, you go 4-2 even in conference play. Like that's or division play. That's really good. Like that will put you in playoff position. I think that should be kind of like your over/under threshold for success, frankly. Dante Griffin, $5 for this is a boomer bust season. Anxious about it. Thanks, Tom. I don't know how to describe this season. Like I don't know if it's. I think there actually is middle ground between boom or bust. Like maybe it's not actually boom or bust because I don't think this team should be viewed as a true Super Bowl contender. Who here thinks they have a top 5 QB? Who here thinks they have a true top 5 roster regardless of the QB? I don't think either of those things are true. I think you can make a damn good argument in the top 10 beyond that. But I think your threshold is have a damn good roster. Philadelphia, San Francisco, like they've done in years past when they've been super competitive. Rams, or have the generational guy at QB. You don't have that. So I think you're kind of in that like tier of like you probably should view playoffs, yes or no, as your margin of success. It is also a first-time head coach. We don't really actually know how good he's going to be. They have made some roster overhauls. There's a new play caller on both sides of the ball. That hasn't happened since how long ago was that? I mean, that was pre-Kellen Moore then, because they always had some continuity because John Edwards was not the play caller. So I think you're like, there is downside here for this year, which I think that would make you anxious, even if it's not boom or bust. Like I see people saying, Dak's top 12, rosters 8 to 10. I think that's fair. You can argue where he fits in the top 12 and where it fits in somewhere in the top 12 roster-wise. Like, I think that's extremely reasonable, actually. Now, if you want us to start today's live show, show it by liking the video for me, please and thank you right now. We will have a whole bunch for you on tap in today's live show. Cowboys news and rumors, lots of reports about the players getting linked to Dallas. We'll break that down. A mailbag as well, 2 ways to get on. #Cowboys puts in the queue so Producer Stone can find your question, bring it up on screen. Or you can skip the line altogether via Super Chat like Ryder and Dante and Roman Wolf Gaming all did. Off-season grades, post-Pickens trade, great time to do it. Do the coaching, the free agency, the trades, the draft, all of that. And extension candidates as well. We'll hit some options in what the Cowboys have. I ran the numbers of the math. They got money. The pie is plentiful. All that coming up here on the Cowboys Report. Coming up on today's show, Jerry Jones had said we got 2 substantive trades they're working on. Is there another one coming? Or maybe not. Maybe that was just what I think, the Houston Texans and the trade down possibility. More free agency moves. If the Cowboys want to, they'll probably say it's a 365-day business. We'll break down some of the reports and claims on that. But remember, when the Cowboys do stuff, we have videos. Even if that's a 1 a.m. Eastern Time and 7 a.m. Eastern Time video, we got you covered. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. A popular suggestion, Des Bryant has mentioned it, several of you guys in the comments, other content creators and some Cowboys media were like, yeah, sign Nick Chubb. On one end, I get it. On the other hand, our good friend Jane Slater has said that Nick Chubb was, quote-unquote, never in play for the Dallas Cowboys. And there are other names we're going to talk about here in a little bit. The Nick Chubb idea specifically, to me, feels a little bit more like, well, I would like them to do this. Which, I want to be clear, that type of like idea, suggestion, wish casting, hopium, that's not a bad thing. I do plenty of it. It's fun to do it. It can kind of cross and blur the lines sometimes, but I think that was more like optimistic ideas. And I get it, because it's Nick Chubb. Everyone knows who Nick Chubb is. Problem is, he was not Nick Chubb last year. The production fall off that you saw from Nick Chubb, who's played 10 games the past 2 years due to another devastating injury, that's a huge concern entering his age 30 season. I have said it before and I will say it again. I think if you're adding Nick Chubb, it is a type of move that should be viewed in the same vein as Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. I don't think you should sign Nick Chubb. I don't think he's going to get the offers of, this is our guy. That is not what the contract should say. That should not be the expectation because, unfortunately, he has to prove it. He wasn't good last year. He's a freak athlete. The stuff he's been able to recover from is wildly impressive. At some point, that will catch up to him. I think if you bring in Nick Chubb, you're probably saying, all right, Javonte, Miles, Nick Chubb, you 3 are competing for maybe 2 spots. That's how you should approach it if you're adding somebody of Nick Chubb's caliber at this point in his NFL career. You promised me 2022 version. Hell yeah, let's ride. That guy wouldn't be available. So do you think the Cowboys need another running back? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Let's go to Stephon Gilmore here. Now, Gilmore was also part of Jane Slater's report, but she actually didn't close the door on it with finality in the same way she certainly seemed to with the Nick Chubb element. She said, tweeted this out yesterday. For those Cowboys fans seeking more, I checked in on anything additional in the works. For instance, are guys like Nick Chubb or Stephon Gilmore in play? The response was, quote, they were never in play. And she later clarified that I don't think it rules Gilmore out in the future, though, if he is still available around training camp and they get a better handle on that room. And I don't have any major issues with this approach. I think that's actually pretty reasonable and, understandable for what the Cowboys, and frankly, what I kind of think Gilmore is looking for. By the way, Gilmore didn't sign until mid-August last year with the Minnesota Vikings. So there is a very real probability, if not possibility at least, that he is available around training camp. And the Cowboys can get a better feel for what this cornerback room looks like. How healthy does Savone Revel look? Does he need a little bit more time? Do you not want to throw him in the starting lineup right away? Does somebody like a Andrew Booth, a Kyer Elam, a Killen Carson, do one of those guys take a big-time step forward? Can Israel Mukuamu hang on to the nickel corner spot? Or do you have to kick Bland inside or go get a different nickel corner? So I think the cornerback spot, if it all plays up to its potential, you don't need anybody. If it doesn't, if there are concerns there and you don't trust guys coming off injury, they're not ready yet, the young guys need more time, the flyer pieces like Elam and Booth don't take a step forward, shoot, you might need two. So I think kind of a wait-and-see approach is totally valid at the cornerback spot. So, predictions. Will the Cowboys make another notable move before training camp? 1 for yes, 0 for no. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. Let's go to the Breece Hall trade stuff. So Sean Sharif over at 105 through the Fan reported that he was told to, quote-unquote, not shut the door on a potential trade for Breece Hall, the talented Jets back. And then Jane Slater said, actually, no, go ahead and shut that door, saying that, quote-unquote, he was never in play. I'll go more in depth on the Breece Hall stuff. Again, part of me wonders, takes two to tango. Does this make any sense at all for the Jets? That's my main issue. We'll come back to it. First, as a reminder, Cowboys rookie and draft gear is available. Chatsports.com/Cowboys draft. Link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. That's chatsports.com/Cowboys draft. Clickable link over there. You'll see the Tyler Booker jerseys. You can search and do the custom ones for your other draft picks if you want one of those, plus the hats and the hoodies. Chatsports.com/Cowboys draft. So in the end, we do have the old conflicting reports for Breece Hall and a potential trade with him for the Dallas Cowboys. If Breece Hall were actually on the market, I would have interest there. I would. Because I think the Cowboys' backfield is fine. I think there is upside. I think there's also downside. I don't think it is great. I don't think it is locked in as a great unit. I think there are some real questions there. It's not a long-term solution with a couple guys on one-year deals. And Breece Hall, I think, is easily running back one on this team. I actually don't think it's all that close. That the production proves that as far as I'm concerned. Even in a not great situation, Breece Hall has been a 4+ yard per carry back. I think that's the minimum you'd be searching for. And he was significantly more productive on average than even Braylon Allen was. And that's my big question. Why would the Jets move him? Why would the Jets trade away Breece Hall? I get there's been some maybe friction there and unhappiness, and they'll probably give Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen touches. Breece Hall is their best back. He's got 1 year left on his contract. Their number 2 receiver is like Allen Lazard. And they're going to have Justin Fields as a running QB. I don't get it from the Jets side at all. If he were actually available, cool. Call. Why not? See what the asking price is. You can get him for a day 3 pick. I'm never opposed to flipping day 3 draft capital, 5th and 6th rounders, for 1 year rentals in the backfield. That makes sense to me. I don't get it from the Jets side of it. So name a player who you want to add. Could be trades, could be free agents, could be, maybe someone gets cut down the line. I don't think you'll have too much post-June 1st action, but those are all options. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Other options that I've seen mentioned out there in the past, is speculative more or less. Jaire Alexander, who we've speculated about too. The money's an issue here. He's owed $17.5 million. The Cowboys can make that work. When healthy, Alexander fits what this team needs in the cornerback room, but do you trust him to stay healthy? The Packers might find a way to make this work for one more year. He's played double-digit games once in the past 3 seasons. 7-7, 16-4 is not very good. That's bad. But when healthy, he's talented. He's also maybe not the culture guy you want. Then again, they did that with George Pickens. Jalen Ramsey is available. I don't know why I put Rams in there. Clearly Dolphins. It's okay. It's not a big deal. The Rams are a popular destination right now for Ramsey. The money is also a sizable factor here. The Dolphins don't say really anything with a trade at the moment. The new team would owe him $21 million going into 2025. Is that a path that the Cowboys have any desire to do? I am not so sure. Alexander, I think there's a good chance he ends up back in Green Bay. We'll kind of see how that one plays out. Kind of feel like the Packers are playing hardball there. Dolphins said they were going to trade away Jalen Ramsey, but I don't. It hasn't happened yet. Actually, post June 1st could actually make some sense there. Najee Harris, I saw Bleacher Report throw him out there. I don't get that from the Chargers side. I know that they drafted Amarian Hampton in round 1. Najee Harris is the ultimate. He's going to get you 4 yards a carry every single season. That is all he does. Repeatedly does it. But it doesn't make sense for the LA side. Cowboys pay nothing. Vet minimum, $1.5 million. The Chargers would essentially pay $3.75 for a fifth? That doesn't make any sense. That makes no... LA just keep him and in case something happens to Amarian Hampton. I've also seen, and I'm sure we'll get mailbag questions on it, DeForest Buckner. I don't really get it from the Colt side at all. But yeah, sure. I think it makes no sense for Indy. So Super Chats, I think we should bring back Amari, 3-headed dragon. At that point, I kind of don't know if Amari wants that. Part of the benefit of Amari was you had to get something else in there to help with your number 2 spot. I think a receiving core for a year of, let me see how it plays out beyond that, Lamb and Pickens and Tolbert and Turpin and Mingo and Flanoy or Campbell or Brooks, that's more than good enough. And if you're Amari looking for kind of a 1-year prove-it deal, you probably don't want to go be the 3rd or 4th best option on a team. You would actually almost rather go back to the Raiders if you wanted to explore that one there. Lucid, do you think Pickens and CD is a top 5 wide receiver duo? I think it's in the conversation. The Bengals is clearly number 1 to me. Higgins and Chase. I've said not in that order. I think the Vikings are above them. The Jefferson-Addison duo is awesome. The production dipped this past year, but I think the Dolphins, when they're healthy, Hill and Waddle is an incredible duo. I think the Rams are in the conversation now with, if healthy again, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, super good. The Eagles still have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, and then it's probably the Cowboys right in that conversation too, kind of in the fringe top 5 range. I think Tampa's in the conversation, and if you expand beyond duos, Tampa should be in the top 5 because that's they go 4 deep with starters. I think the Lions are kind of close, although I think Williams is kind of further behind some of the other options there as the 2. And I think Jacksonville and Chicago might not be there yet, but in a year or 2 could also very much be in that conversation given the amount of assets they've invested there. So I think no doubt top 10, maybe top 5. Let's go to Pickens, by the way. What number will George Pickens wear from the Cowboys? He did say today he does not know what number he will wear. So let me know in the comment section of today's show, what number do you think George Pickens ends up wearing? There might need to be some number maneuvering because a lot of those have already been assigned. I see 1, that's Jalen Tolbert. 14 is Marquise Bell. So what change do you make there? 13 is available. I'm not counting, the undrafted free agents because those are undrafted free agents and they repeat numbers a lot. So I'm honestly just straight up ignoring it from that perspective. 69, nice. 17 is Brandon Aubrey. So I doubt that one happens. 3, which is currently worn by Dante Fowler, which would be fun and really bring in the whole GP3. His college number was 1, which is Tolbert right now. 18 is Damone Clark. But if I were Damone Clark, I would let George Pickens buy that number off me. That's what I'd do. 14. Let's see. 21. Ugh, 21 and 20 are gross. It's also Kalen Carson, Kyer Elam. 19 is Ryan Flanoy. That actually could be an option. 6. Okay, that's Donovan Wilson. Not a ton of numbers there. And even into the 80s, 80 is Paris Campbell. 81 is Jonathan Mingo. So what do you buy it off there in the end? 5 is the punter, Brian Anger. If I were the punter, I'd sell that number too. I'll be honest. I think Anger needs to give up 5. Number 5 is too cool of a number to be worn by your punter. Like a skill guy, offense or defense, should be wearing 5. We can give 16 to the punter. Sorry, Jalen Cropper. Like, that's fine. We can make him wear, like, I was going to say 12, but he can't wear 12. Like, make the punter give up 5, and let's give 5 to a cooler player. 7, that's Trayvon Diggs. 84, 85. Okay, now we're talking of receiver numbers. That's Kelvin Harmon, and Princeton Fant. Sell the jersey, buddy. Sell that number, but buy it out. There are no Kelvin Harmon Princeton Fanders. It's super easy in the end. I actually don't hate Peyton's idea. Like, I think 81 would kind of be funny, because then I can just do a bunch of TO photos and say, look at George Pickens in a Cowboys jersey. That's the first thing I thought of. Anything above 18? We'll see. Let's see. 82, 83 are in there as well. 82 is available. That's also Witten. They haven't given out Witten, or they haven't really given it out in a while. So I think that one is worth monitoring. 69, always nice. Always nice. And we're not, honestly, I don't think you can put any more numbers up in the rafters. Honestly. Like, we're at that point. Like, if you don't let anybody wear 12, and you don't let anybody wear, 22, at least at the running back spot, like, you kind of, in Staubach's number, like, you got 90 men on the roster. That's very few numbers that I can give out. I kind of can't. I can't just be like, oh, this and that and that. Like, I got to condense it down a little bit there. So, get your predictions in. 15 is in there. That is Will Greer's number, by the way. So, all right, the super chat menu, $5 Venmo. You get into the Micah decision pool. Closest to predict the correct date he signs or is traded will win the 50-50 with the pot. $10 baby name submissions, $20 Bean Boozled, $50 for the beer bong. We'll open one of those. That's the super chat menu on today's show. $5 Venmo for the Micah decision pool. $10. I'll text my wife your baby name suggestions for our kids number 2. Bean Boozled's $20, $50 for the beer bong. JL Channel. Still think Chanel sounds cooler, but it's not how it's pronounced. The Cowboys offense is set, and it's going to come down to number 4 at the quarterback. Dak has all he needs to succeed. No excuses. I think that to define what we mean by, like, succeed. Like, is this Super Bowl or playoffs? Because playoffs, I agree. And I think the biggest thing is stay healthy. But I actually do think there are scenarios, and I don't think this would be an excuse. I think this would kind of fall more into the reason category. If teams continue to just put too high shell coverage out there, and the Cowboys cannot run the football because the tackles don't play very well, or, injuries, I guess, would probably be more of an excuse, but or the running game is actually held back, and they still can't run the ball in the games that matter come playoff time, we've seen that story play out before. But I definitely think they put the team and the offense and the head coach, too, and the quarterback in a much better spot than what they did last year, where they truly did set them up for failure. I don't think this is a top-end, top 5 offense, regardless of the QB, unless you put Mahomes back there, then we have a different conversation. But I think that it should be better. And for a team that, going in Pickens is 7.5 over/under wins, you should be pushing more for 9.5, 10. I think that is a reasonable expectation for this team, acknowledging the uncertainty of a new head coach. A head coach that a lot of us did not want. And again, more personnel changes on the defensive side of the ball. But you absolutely need your quarterback to play better. Has to play more like he did in 2023 than what he did in 2024. That was not all the supporting cast fault in 2024. I think we all agree with that. Like, you have to have better play on that front. Otherwise, it's just, you get bad quarterback play, you can't do that much with it. You get really good quarterback play, you can do a lot more with it. So I do agree he has to play well. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Lucid, would you like to re-sign George Pickens, Bland, Tyler Smith? Yes, I would. Absolutely, I would. We'll hit that extension candidates at the end of today's show, but you can re-sign both, and Pickens, I think maybe you wait a little bit. Like, I'm actually fine with that. But Bland and Tyler Smith, I would just pay those guys. For me. Brendan, is Pickens a 1 or 2 year rental? The answer here is maybe. Both sides seem content to let's see how this plays out, which I'm actually on board with that idea. I do want to see how Pickens fits. There is the possibility he is just too much. There's too much drama. He's not locked in enough, and it is what it is, and you tried it for a year, and in theory, you get a comp pick back, or he plays too well, and in a year or two, he ends up, not, with the franchise tag being an option, he leaves and gets paid big money. But both sides are very much on board, let's see how this plays out, which I actually, as a guy who normally wants to pay guys and not wait, I actually am on board waiting on this front, especially when the player wants to. That's the mindset. And Mitch says he wasn't a problem at Georgia. He got suspended at Georgia. What? What? He had incidents at Georgia for the same kind of, objectively speaking, I think George Pickens is a funny player. I think he does funny stuff on the field. But it's not as funny when it's your team. It's not as funny when a ball gets intercepted and he starts to run back and just starts fighting with the player on the field. That happened. Was that the Bengals or the Browns game? The Browns game? It just happens. That's what he does. There will be a George Pickens crash out at some point. Now, if it's just the one time and he's not late to meetings and games because the Christmas Day game, he didn't know when the game was, which I think a lot of it comes down to he's not a bad kid. He's just immature. And in theory, that gets better, but it is theory in the end. We're going to grade the entire Cowboys offseason. Before we get into it, grade the offseason from your perspective. How do you feel about what the Cowboys did as a whole this offseason? A, B, C, D, or F? Let me know in the comment section of today's show. So for today's grades video, we will look at the coaching staff again. Haven't done that in a while. The free agency / trade additions, some free agency personnel losses, of course, the 2025 NFL draft picks, and we'll kind of go through some winners and losers from that side as well. I want to start by trying to keep all these individual parts separate and kind of, it then kind of leads to a cumulative bump up at various points, but then we'll kind of grade them all together because I think there are different elements, even if they all are interconnected in the end. And I think the biggest move of the offseason has to be the first one made, right? Isn't that the hiring of Brian Schottenheimer? Isn't that the one that has the largest impact on the entire everything about this Cowboys team? I think that is your biggest move that you made. And that hiring process objectively was bad. They did not go about it in the right way. I don't think that's arguable. Doing a not real coaching search, not interviewing top guys, interviewing a few people, and promoting the first-time OC without actually trying to hire the best candidate and seemingly being committed to keeping some semblance of, continuity, which, do you need that? I don't know. For the most part, I think actually everything after that has been arrow pointing upward. I think everything Schottenheimer has said has been very good so far. I think his hires, the free agency, all of that was in the correct direction. I'm a little curious how Nick Sorensen fits in as the special teams coach. I think the Matt Eberflus hire as DC, logical. That fits everything. I think he's a good DC too. Clayton Adams, I'm intrigued by as the offensive coordinator. We don't know how good Brian Schottenheimer is going to be. That's a huge factor there. I think keeping Linda Wells was a big move. I like Junior Adams as an upside receivers coach. Maybe a young college guy will help manage George Pickens some. Connor Riley, you pulled a sitting college offensive coordinator, going to be your line coach. Feels like a win. The Cowboys are mostly just running it back with Matt Eberflus' defense. Andre Curtis, Dave Borgonzi, David Overstreet. Aaron Whitecotton's got pretty good reviews. Some of the other assistants kind of stuck around. Ken Dorsey is here. Everyone, I forgot about that to an extent too. Tyquan Underwood is a former player. I think the staff overall is solid. A lot of this comes down to like, hey, do you trust Brian Schottenheimer as the head coach? Right? Assistant other coaches, Carlos Polk interviewed for the special teams job. J.J. Clark was a kind of higher-ranking college coach that made the jump to the NFL. I think it's a solid staff. The process stunk. I think there are very valid concerns to have about the head coach still. So I give it a B in the end, and that is very much weighted in favor of the assistants and trying to give Schottenheimer a fair shot that I did not give him in the interview process. So what is your confidence level in Brian Schottenheimer as the Cowboys head coach? I do want you to think about this one. Scale it for me from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. All right, free agency additions / re-signings. The big splashy one was keeping Osa Odighizuwa on a deal that, relative to what Milton Williams got, looks pretty darn team-friendly. They kept, free squares, C.J. Goodwin, Wanye Thomas, Brock Hoffman, cheapish deals for Marquise Bell, the long snapper, Kevontae Turpin. They added Javonte Williams. They signed Robert Jones, who will be a backup. Solomon Thomas gets a 2-year deal to kind of be a rotational defensive lineman. Upside swings on Peyton Turner. Trades for Kyer Elam and Kenneth Murray. Love the Jack Sanborn signing. Dante Fowler was, by their own standards, a bigger splash than what they've made in the past. $6 million, that's a lot for them, but it's a player that they know. Paris Campbell, Miles Sanders actually might not be guaranteed roster spots. They traded for Joe Milton to be a backup QB. Sadiq Charles and Hakeem Adeniji feel like camp bodies because those are non-guaranteed contracts. And then, of course, the big one, the trade for George Pickens, the one that happened after the NFL draft, which we'll come back to in a little bit. The free agency losses, meanwhile, you lose Trey Lance. Okay, Cooper Rush leaves, whatever. Rico Dowdle left for a shockingly cheap deal with Carolina. That one felt like a misjudgment of the market by everybody involved, and especially Rico. Cooks up for the Saints, not bothered by it. Jordan Lewis once stung, but like Adoga, okay, I don't actually love him that much anyway. Chauncey Golston leaves, okay. DeMarcus Lawrence, guess there were some culture issues there, / friction in how they wanted to lead. I don't think the quality of this free agency class is elite by any stretch of the imagination. But the quantity is far better than previous years for the Dallas Cowboys. I wouldn't call it an elite free agency. By the Cowboy standards it is. But just independent of what the Cowboys normally do and across the NFL, I think that's a pretty darn good free agency class. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Cash in on the basketball playoffs with Prize Picks. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the court to your Prize Picks lineups. Points, boards, assists. Take your pick of more or less for a shot to 2,000 times your cash today. They also got season-long football Prize Picks slates. I like the less than here. The Lions offense won't be as good. Kelsey won't be as involved. Rashee Rice will be heavily involved. Jaden Daniels won't be, I think, asked to run as much, nor do they probably want him to. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. Then the draft happens. Tyler Booker in round 1. Ezaraku in the 2nd. Savone Revel in the 3rd. Jaden Blue and Shamar James in the 5th. Ajani Cornelius in the 6th round. Jay Toia in the 7th. Phil Maffa. Tommy Akinbasote out of Maryland in the 7th rounder. 9 picks. They traded up one time in the 5th round. Again, I didn't love the Booker pick. That one just wasn't as high on my board as it was on the Cowboys. But I do too much work going into this to just be like, well, the Cowboys did it, therefore it's good. I think it's going to be a damn good starter, though. So it wasn't a bad pick. I'll give the Cowboys credit. I think in years past, they've gotten themselves into trouble when they've forced for the need pick, or I think that was the Guyton pick, really, / went, well, we can just coach up the super raw guy. They just kind of went with, I think, the best player, especially on day 2. So again, I thought it was a good draft. It's a very good draft. What was your favorite Cowboys offseason addition? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. I assume many of you will say the George Pickens trade. Which again, that was the Cowboys' biggest splash in years. They have not made that level of impact, that level of sizable move. Amari Cooper? I think it's bigger than the Gilmore-Cooks trade, which is probably about as close as they got. So before we get to some of other takeaways and offseason winners and whatnot there, I think by the Cowboys standards, it's probably an A-plus offseason. Overall, I give it B+/A- if you want to kind of cumulatively bump some things up. I think there is some unfinished business here. You have not gone out and done the extensions you need to. I think there is still valid concern of how good of a head coach is Brian Schottenheimer actually going to be, because it's super hard to have the level of playoff success we all want if you don't have a top 10 head coach. That's actually really challenging to pull off. But isn't this the best Cowboys offseason since, I don't know? The bar is extremely low here because we can play that every year. I don't think Super Bowl is the expectation. I don't think that's fair given where you finished last year. I think you can use the Vegas lines of the 7.5 was the over-under win total. Might jump to 8.5. That's not very high. I do think back in the playoffs should be. I think it should be the expectation. And maybe most importantly, doesn't this offseason kind of give us some hope again? The vibes were bad last year. This time last year, man, I don't think we felt good. We were hoping for 10 wins. Now, maybe you're still hoping for 10 wins, but it's an upward arc instead of a downward one. And we'll have Cowboys videos all off-season and training camp long. Hit that sub button if you haven't already done so. Rapid fire, some of the biggest off-season winners. I think your passing game should be a lot better. Going from Brandon Cooks and Tolbert to George Pickens and hopefully better Jake Ferguson and hopefully healthy Dak Prescott. I think CeeDee Lamb is also a winner because it's not all on him now. I think Jake Ferguson counts as a winner. They didn't add tight end competition for him. Same goes with Guyton and Steele. And by the way, boy, is there a lot riding on those two players. They did not add a 6th-round pick. Does not change the outlook for those two players for their roles. The Cowboys need those two players to be good. They need them to Guyton to take a step forward in year 2. Still to kind of get back to his pre-injury form. That has to happen. Hopefully the new schematic changes help both of those guys. Mozzie Smith, again, it's kind of what their roles have they changed at all? Their outlook changed at all? A 7th-round pick, 2 of them, is not competition at nose guard. It's depth. It helps. Those guys could be good, but they're still going to give Mozzie Smith every chance to be that guy. Israel Mukuamu is, for me, this year's Rico Dowdle. I think he is primed, even though the money's not a lot, even though the expectation of impact could be low, the opportunity is extremely high. And he could have a big-time season as a potential nickel corner for the Dallas Cowboys. Some losers to come, and one of them sticks out to me for this question here. What is the biggest thing / move missing from this Cowboys offseason? Is it a new owner? Is it, signing Micah? Is it using the blinds at AT&T Stadium? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. I think underrated, biggest Loser, Mike McCarthy. Let's be honest here. Mike was not put in a position for success last season. Like, he was set up for failure. Now, I think at various points he kind of accepted it with open arms more than he should have, but he was not put in a good spot last year. Like, I think which is part of the whole issue I had last year of just like not making a decision was stupid, but he was not set in a good spot. And I'm sure there's some jealousy because like, oh, they traded for Pickens. McCarthy got Brandon Cooks and Tolbert as receiver options last year, and no offseason moves. With the Pickens trade, I think Tolbert, the other receivers, all kind of drop. Like, instead of fighting for 2 and 3, now you're fighting for 3 and 4. And Turpin's already a roster lock. Like, there could be a surprise move there. Damone Clark, the linebacker, they added 3 linebackers this year. They signed Jack Sanborn. They signed Kenneth Murray, or they traded for Kenneth Murray. They draft Shamar James. He is, I think, potentially on his way out. Brock Hoffman, the lineman, went from being, he could be the starter at right guard to, he's the backup now in a span of like 20 minutes during the draft, which kind of stunk. And then finally, I think it's the extension candidates. And this is the outlying thing for me, the biggest outlying thing that the Cowboys still have control over. You got a lot of good players. You got a lot of cap space. You should pay those guys. I think the Cowboys did a better job in free agency, got back to their normal ways in the draft. Let's continue, learning and evolving with the way that they handle their extensions. That is an area they have to be better at to maximize their own opportunities. Mailbag time. Use hashtag Cowboys or skip the line altogether via Super Chat. We got Robert Servin as one of these Super Chats on there. Get your questions in via hashtag Cowboys. Skip the line altogether via Super Chat. I'm going to make sure there's no NFL news that I've missed here while we were live and sip some of my own water too. I almost broke something. That would have been real bad. All right. Get your questions in. Hashtag Cowboys. Skip the line altogether with the Super Chat, including Robert Servants. There is a super thanks we'll get to as well. If you have questions, thoughts in general, just use that hashtag Cowboys to get them on there. So we'll get it going. You all set, Stone? Attaboy, let's do it. Mailbag time. A $5 super thanks from William Cook. I think the conversation about Tyler Smith will be the same as Dak and CD and Micah. They want the attention. I don't want to wait on a Smith extension. We'll do the extension candidates video. Keep your eye out for that one. I don't like that, though. You are the Dallas Cowboys. You don't need the attention. You will get it no matter what. ESPN will find a way to talk about you. You do not need it. So just, you pay him and you get attention for it. Plus, it's a guard. Like, your guard's going to drive the same attention? Like, I would just like to let it happen. Pay him and be done with it. And that came in via super thanks to feature here on YouTube. It's a super chat, but on demand. Allows you to skip, we'll get your questions on the mailbag. We'll put it on if you do it there. Edit your message, send them whatever, and we appreciate your support, so we will always give you a shout-out, even if it's like the one guy who did F you, Tom, which I thought was really funny because I did ask for it. So. Roberts, what running back combo should we expect week 1? Yes. You're going to have a combination of all of them. Whoever, I don't think, maybe Phil Maffa makes teams the 7th rounder. Take your pick between Maffa and Deuce Vaughn. Riley and Maffa, given the more recent draft investment there, may or may not be active. That 4th back might not be active on game day. We'll see because there is Hunter Lipke there. As it sits right now, I think you would probably go with, you're going to have maybe Phil Maffa as your 4, Lipke as your 5, which is fullback, Deagle at tight end, balancing act there. If Williams and Sanders play well, they'll make the team. I think who's ever active at running back is going to play. Jaden Blue will play. Javonte/Miles Sanders will play. I know it's kind of a non-answer, but you're going to have a committee. And I think that combination will rotate and change throughout the year, and hopefully a couple of them play well. I do think the lack of a guy, which I don't think Blue – lack of the guy. I think Blue can be a guy for you in the right role, but I don't think he's ever going to be the guy the same way Derrick Henry's been the guy for a half decade, 10 years. I think the expectations of that running back room are heavy, heavy committee, which pros and cons to it, but – you still wonder, where does that running back room rank in the NFL? It's probably not a very high one. from Chastity. Chastity? I don't know. It's definitely not it. Cowboys trade Tolbert now. I mean, you could if you were like trying to recoup draft capital, but I would rather just keep Jalen Tolbert. Like, I think as a 3, that's actually pretty good. It's not great, but I think he was like 64th or something in receiving yards last year. You don't want that as your number 2, but as your 3/your 4 with Jake Ferguson involved, okay. I think he does like a little bit of everything. He can do inside, outside stuff for you, which I think does fit really well with Lamb and Pickens on the outside. Like, I think that actually works. So, and especially like in the event of injury, like, do you really want to do that? He's pretty cheap. Like, I'd lean towards keeping him, and then, hey, maybe get a comp pick next year if you let him walk and let Mingo take over that third receiver spot. So what do you do with Jalen Tolbert? Now, I'll say, like, if Mingo balls out, okay, we can have a different conversation too, but my expectations are low there. T for trade, K for keep. Pin comment, go vote if the ad comes here on YouTube. Brendan, record against the NFC North and AFC West. I'll be honest, that NFC North is going to be a gauntlet. I don't think you beat the Packers because for whatever reason, they just own you. Lions is a double revenge game for all parties involved. They should still be pretty solid. I would say beat the Bears, but the Pope is from Chicago, so I don't feel as good about that one anymore. Like, I'm kind of anxious now. Vikings are a wild card. Honestly, if you can split against the North, that is incredible. 1 is probably at minimum what you're aiming for. AFC West, you should beat the Raiders. I assume you're not going to beat the Chiefs. And again, you should split ideally against the Chargers and Broncos, who are going to be playoff contenders. So if you can, get 3 against the AFC West, and if you can, or at least minimum 2 against the AFC West, and 2 against the NFC North, you go 4-2 against the NFC East. That kind of puts you in a solid-ish spot. Lucid, you think Tyler Booker will be a Pro Bowler? I don't know about year 1, but yes, at some point in his career. Like, he's not Zach Martin. He's never going to be as good as Zach Martin. But I don't see why Tyler Booker can't, on his rookie contract, be a top 10 player at guard. Like, I think that is extremely doable for him. He's not. I don't think he's going to be a top 5 guard. Like, he's not. I don't think he's Quentin Nelson. I don't think he's Zach Martin caliber. But I think he's day 1 starter, not a liability. And, whether it's, top 10, top 15 by the time that 5th-year option comes about, it's like, yeah, this guy's playing really well. And he's, maybe if you treat offensive line as like you don't need the 5 best at each spot, but you don't have a bad guy, Booker is not going to be an issue for you. Speaking of Booker, get his rookie jersey over at chatsports.com/Cowboys draft. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. Also, NFL draft gear, hats, hoodies as well. You can also search for, the Revel as a Raku jerseys if you want. Jaden Blue on top of that. Link will be in the comments section and the description. Clickable link over there, chatsports.com/Cowboys draft. Dorian Meklis, hopefully I pronounced that right. Dorian, if not, I'm really sorry. What is your roster for running back, and how many guys are we keeping? Also, do you count Hunter Lipke? I think he makes it as the fullback, but he can also do tight end stuff for you. So, like, he's kind of like you carry either 3 tight ends and 4 backs plus Lipke, or you carry 3 backs and 4 tight ends plus Lipke. That's kind of how I cheat the numbers game there, which is Jaden Blue. I think they want Javonte Williams. I'd probably go light at tight end, and I'd probably keep Lipke and Sanders and Williams and Maffa in blue. That's probably what I would do. But I think that Sanders/Williams, neither guy is guaranteed a spot. I think that Maffa/Vaughn/ those 2 are not both guaranteed a spot. And maybe it's 3 of them end up getting cut. So Blue's on it. I think you keep Hunter Lipke. I think I think he does too many good things for special teams to not move on there. That last spot though, does Phil Maffa help you on special teams? Does he learn how to do that? Because Sanders and Javonte don't. And all of a sudden, there could only be room for one of like Sanders or Maffa potentially. Riley, where does the Lamb-Pickens duo rank? I think near the top 5. And, of course, there is downside of Pickens being a crazy person, knucklehead, and it falls apart. But, like, Bengals are number 1. I think Vikings are above them. I think Rams, Eagles, Dolphins, Bucks depth-wise, they go 4 deep, like are all in that same, like, well, this is a possible top 5 wide receiver combination too. I think the Lions are outside of that tier. I think Bears, Jags aren't there yet because they still haven't had the breakouts from like the young guys they drafted, Hunter and Rome Odunze. But I think the upside is certainly there. So where would you rank that CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens duo? Is it top 5 or is it like 6/7? How does that fit in for you? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Drew DTX, give me Jaire, and I think we are set. Also, go Stars. Got to have one Dallas team having some playoff success this year. We'll see about the Rangers. Got to have at least one. I don't know how Jaire gets to the open market because I don't think Dallas is going to trade for him at that contract. Packers seem kind of committed to not just cutting him. So I think if he's cut, I have a ton of interest. Like, I'm all for it. Trade, I think it's probably too much for them. Donnell Graves, a.k.a. Texas Wolf. Hey, Tom, Mingo or Tolbert for receiver 3? Who you got? There'll be a competition, but, like, Tolbert was way better last year. Like, I have not seen Mingo produce the way that Tolbert has. Like, and I know that Mingo was open and the QB missed him, but, like, the same QB Jalen Tolbert had, too. So I think it's clearly Tolbert above Mingo. I also wouldn't be shocked if, like, the Cowboys kind of bring Mingo along slowly and hope that next year he ends up taking that wide receiver 3 spot. Frankie, are Dak and Pickens a good fit? We'll see about the locker room stuff. I'll say this about George. If you can't make it work under Mike Tomlin, and you can't make it work with, like, your own personal stuff with Dak from a leadership perspective, like, it's just not going to happen for you. Like, that's strike 2. Like, couldn't do it under Tomlin, couldn't do it under Prescott. Like, that would actually be a huge concern of, like, how you handle yourself and mature with, like, good leadership around you there. Great stats here from Warren Sharp that I want to read off, specifically as it relates to the Dak Prescott, George Pickens fit on the field. Last 2 seasons, Dak Prescott had the number 1 most passing yards on 15-plus yard go routes. He had the second most pass attempts, by the way. George Pickens, the last 2 years, had the number 1 most receiving yards on 15-yard-plus go routes and the second most catches on 15-plus yard go routes. Dak was the number 3 in terms of accuracy of 40 QBs on those go routes. So, A, miss me with the Dak can't throw deep stuff. It does not match with what the actual numbers say. It just feels like that because we're not watching other QBs play and don't understand how hard it is to actually hit 35-yard bombs downfield, 20-yard bombs downfield. It's not easy. That they fit super well together. Goes, outs, and hitches. That's like what George Pickens runs. And those are throws the Cowboys run. Like, I think on the field, the off-the-field stuff, football character stuff, valid questions. Specifically on the field, I think it is a fantastic fit. Like, I think the stuff that Pickens does well, which is outside the numbers, the stuff that CeeDee Lamb does inside the numbers especially, like that's just like the puzzle pieces all fit together with everything. And Jake Ferguson does seam stuff really well, which Dak does really well. So, like, yes. Now, some of those 15-yard go routes are factoring in the seam stuff for Fergie that were thriving in 2023. They stopped doing it in 2024 for some stupid reason. Like, the on-field fit for me is an A+. What do you think? A, B, C, D, or F? Let me know in the comments of today's show. Dallas wants to know, who do you think the Cowboys will face in the season opener? It has been too many years since the Cowboys played the Giants to open up the NFL season. NFL is going to just go back and reuse the script. Cowboys for the Giants week 1. That is my prediction. I got not quite 1 in 17. It's like 1 in 13 chance of being right. And I guess I double dip by doing 2 Giants games. I don't know. Hit that sub button if you haven't already. YouTube.com/@CowboysTV for more free Cowboys YouTube videos. LSU Tigers, who is your sleeper to be a star this upcoming season? Okay. I'm going to answer this of, like, guys that you're okay. I'll give you you're not going to like this first one. I think there is a non-zero chance that this is the best version of Terrence Steele that we have seen. This is me drinking the Kool-Aid. And if we can argue offensive line star, I get it. Like, I think the schematic changes, the O-line coach change for a guy that actually likes you now, because last guy was a football terrorist. I think that Terrence Steele could have a really good year, especially as a run blocker. Defensively, how about, and star is probably not fair, but becomes a good starter. How about Israel Mukuamu? And he's got an opportunity to be a key part of the defense, or he adds somebody else and he gets benched, and is what it is. And I think the ideal answer here is Osa. I don't think he's a star right now, but if he can have a big time year and kind of make it worth that contract, that's a big deal for the Cowboys. Lance Dunbar, who on the Cowboys has the most trade value to recoup draft capital, and who could you give up? I mean, you can trade Micah for a bunch of picks, but that doesn't bother me. I think of the realistic guys you can trade, and we'll do a whole video on this too. You could try to shop one of your wide receivers. You could offer up a gently used Sam Williams or a Damone Clark. I don't know who wants those guys, coming off injuries and stuff. I don't think you're going to get anywhere near a third-round pick back unless you're moving a starter, which, kind of defeats the purpose of trading for George Pickens in the first place. So trades are possible, but I think they will lean much closer to the Peyton Hendershot future seventh-round pick you got back than, getting a third-round pick back. The Super Chat menu on today's show. The $5 Venmo gets you into the Micah decision pool. $5 for that. $10, I will text my wife your baby name suggestions. Don't think we've had any of those. I see no other Venmo, so that's that. $20 Bean Boozled, $50 Beer Bong for the Super Chat as well. Get those Super Chats in. And we have one coming in from Lucid. I have to think about this one here. This one's not easy. Gotta think about this one. He's asking the George Pickens trade in NBA terms. I gotta think of someone who was not a bad guy, but kind of did stupid stuff sometimes, and always did something weird. He's not as good as Ja Morant. That was the first one I went to. But Ja's done some off-field stuff that is actually worse. He's not Draymond, because Draymond's dirty. It's definitely not what George Pickens is. I actually don't hate. I was thinking about J.R. Smith. I don't mind that one at all. I think that's got some value to it. I'm trying to think of guys that just do funny stuff. He's better. He's better, but Nick Young. He's better than Nick Young though. It's not Nick Young, and I think Swaggy P, and just he was the one who shot the three and celebrates, turns his back, and the iconic GIF. That one's kind of up there for me. I don't hate Westbrook, but I feel somehow I feel Westbrook was early Josh Allen, where it was just out of control. Lance Stevenson. Now we're talking. That's a good one. Jordan Poole, I think he's better than Jordan Poole. I think he was, Pickens is probably better than Lance Stevenson too. It gets a little bit tricky because, smaller teams and bigger impact and kind of gets out of hand kind of quickly there. But and Stevenson was I think maybe 2 years of double-digit points. I don't think he's Jimmy Butler, because Jimmy Butler I think is too good of a comp there. I think that's too good. Lance Stevenson, supercharged Lance Stevenson maybe is the answer. Just because he would always crash out too. I forget when he blew in what's his face's ears. That's the stuff that you sometimes get with George. Actually, I think Lance Stevenson is probably a good answer there. I think that one works. I don't mind Meta World Peace, Ron Artest. I think that's maybe a bit too. I don't think. Maybe he'd go fight a fan. So maybe that does work too. J.R. Smith was kind of the one I thought of. I don't think he's as insane as Rodman though. I think that's probably too extreme. Rodman was an insane person. People saying Embiid. I think there is a Joel Embiid comp on this team. I just kind of think it's Dak. Because the Sixers are the Dallas Cowboys. We know that, right? It's the exact same team. And, like, he's actually really good when healthy, but they haven't had the playoff success. Like, I think that actually is the comp. And should have won MVP, too. So, Paul, Super Chat. Luce, Super Chat's going to hear in a little bit. Rodman's on his own level. I agree. Rich Porter Trey says Minnesota Jimmy Butler. Hey, we're about to get... I mean, to be fair, Pickens was doing Pittsburgh with a bunch of backup bad QBs winning games against the starters, right? Like that iconic Jimmy Butler on his way out one. That was fun. Paul retracted Super Chat. Let's go to Lucid instead. I think Joe Milton is better than Trey Lance. I've seen Joe Milton play a better NFL game. Not a very high bar. I think both guys need growth and development, and I don't think either guy is someone you actually want starting. There was a reason why the trade caught. Like I know the claim was that the Patriots had better offers for Joe Milton, but did you really? Or was it like same but different? You know, I don't know how different those offers actually were. Let's pick the Cowboys record in 2025 here. Someone said Gilbert Arenas. I thought about that when I went, nah, but he's not going to bring a gun in the locker room. He's not that kind of knucklehead. Someone said Brett Favre on welfare. Well, that's just criminal. Allegedly. He'll sue me otherwise, I guess, but whatever. I mean, if he did it, then there you go. I think Nate. Antonio Brown and Dennis Rodman comp. Now we're talking. Of the comparisons there, which hopefully, you can snap the streak of Steelers dump a receiver and they become more crazy streak that they've been on. Someone said Rondo. I actually like Rondo. I don't know. Rondo, which version? End of career Rondo or like Boston Rondo? Honestly, on the field, Rondo was, or on the court, I guess, Rondo was awesome everywhere except Dallas. Everywhere but the Mavs, like he was just like always a really good football player. And I think he was just like head and shoulders basketball IQ ahead of almost everybody. It went really bad in Dallas. And then the Mavs dumped Carlisle. And maybe Rondo wasn't totally wrong in the end. On today's show, we're breaking down the potential Cowboys extension candidates before this season and why they actually can indeed afford to pay them, despite what various people might try to tell you. Now, if you want more Cowboys videos and you want to help explain to people why they have the pie and the money available, this is a good video to share. Send this to your friends if they claim the Cowboys are on a cap space. As we will get into, they are not. As of right now, and I'll use Over the Cap because I think they're the best salary cap site out there. The Cowboys have $10 million in salary cap space. That is on the $295.5, almost $300 million projected 2026 salary cap. However, there are some buts here that we'll get into because you say 10's not a lot. Well, that does not yet factor in, I don't believe, the rollover money, which is not finalized, won't be finalized for a while. Right now, it's around 30. That number might drop down to 20 or something. So, asterisk it, but it's going to be more than 10 once the rollover gets factored in. And already, the Cowboys have the tied for third most players under contract for 2026. 46 total. In the offseason, the top 51 only count. So all of a sudden, you're not actually that far away from fielding a normally sized roster. So you have a lot of cheap players under contract because in reality, you're only locked into and committed to these three players. It's Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Osa Odigizua. And by doing the planned restructures on those three contracts, you can free up around $62 million in salary cap space. The contracts are built to be restructured. The Cowboys do off-season ones. The Eagles do option bonuses. It is the same practice. It just pushes the money off in the future, as you should do it, because the cap keeps going higher. So that's 10, 20, 30. We'll see about the rollover. 62 there. And if you want to, You can make other roster moves. You can cut Terrence Steele if he doesn't play well. You can cut Trayvon Diggs, which might be the path they're on. You can cut Malik Hooker. You can keep them at their current cap hits and not save that amount of money. You can restructure or extend them and save similar amounts of money. So that's anywhere from 0 to 28 with TBDs based on how they play. Now, that also opens up holes at those spots. You know, Savone Revel, Deron, we'll talk about, fills the dig spots. Right tackle is then kind of a big hole. Hooker, maybe a backfill with Wanye Thomas or Marquise Bell. But if you wanted to, like that magical $100 million figure, which the Cowboys chose not to get to last year, is also in play. Maybe it's not that high. Maybe it's 70. Maybe it's 60 on the absolute low end. But as we'll get into, several of the guys we want to extend, the cap numbers would not change that much over this year and next year. I want to emphasize this. The money, the cash, the cap, they are not issues for the Dallas Cowboys. They're not. Cleveland? A different conversation. Don't let those Jones boys and some of the people who carry water for them tell you otherwise. There is a tremendous amount of pie available. They have all the ingredients to bake a second pie. It is doable. And as we'll get into, some of those extensions don't actually change your cap outlook early on. Now, this is a valid question. Do you trust the Cowboys with contracts? Why for yes and for no? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Let's talk extension candidates here. The biggest, of course, is Micah Parsons, the on Hall of Fame track edge rusher who is going to command a record-setting contract now in the final year of his deal. The highest paid non-QBs are Jamar Chase at $40.25 in terms of average per year, Myles Garrett at almost $123 million in guaranteed money. Those are the figures that you will probably have to beat if you are the Cowboys and Micah Parsons. That is how it works. That is the life of having a premier football player. And it's doable. You can give him 40 and a half. We've talked about these numbers before, the possible contract comps. Here's what matters, though, with Micah. You pay him right now. His cap hit drops. TBD on how much. And the cap hit savings this year, minus the cap hit you then add to next year's deal, which is currently nothing because he is a free agent, doesn't actually change that much. There's actually a very minimal amount of additional money being added to your books over the next 2 years. So I think in the end, this Micah Parsons contract gets done and will get done, but it needs to get done sooner than later. I don't want to let TJ Watt get paid first. I don't want to let Aiden Hutchinson maybe get paid first. Don't do that nonsense. Just get it done. Pay your superstar player. I would like to have a top-of-the-market deal done, not last in line once. That would actually be super cool. Now, you can predict when the Micah decision comes. I think it's a signing, but trade is also an option. Venmo me at @WhatGoingDowney, $5 to enter the 50-50 split the pot. You go to chatsports.com/Micah to see those entries. Closest one wins. I'll put the link in the comments and the description of today's show. Let's go to Tyler Smith, the guard. This one is also going to be a top-of-the-market contract. But remember, you've moved on from other top-of-the-market deals over the years. The Zach Martin contract is coming off the books. Tyron Smith's deal is off the books. The big Zeke contract is off the books. You've committed to 3 guys long-term. That's really it. Now, Trey Smith is kind of the highest-paid guard in the NFL, but that's at $23.4 million per year. Landon Dickerson is making $21 million. The 5th-year option for Tyler Smith is $21.2. Why don't you just do a 4 or 5-year deal at the 5th-year option price tag? That will boost your cap hit this year by at least a decent chunk of change. But it's also going to drop the 2026 figure. Instead of having a $25 million cap charge in 2025 and 2026, you probably smooth that out and drop it, especially in next year's numbers. So again, you can make Tyler Smith the highest paid guard in football and not really have any massive change to your salary cap outlook. And yes, you're changing the numbers in 2028 and 2029 and 2030, and I don't care. I don't care how you look numbers-wise with a rising salary cap that's going to explode in 2029, by the way, when the TV contracts are up. I don't care about that. Give me my 3 to 4 year window. Maximize that. And if it fails, why not blow it up? And if it works, I kick the can down the line again until the quarterback has to retire. That's what I would do. Again, you can no real money changes next 2 years cap-wise with these two. None. And I'm looking at 60, 70 in the cap space already. Now, we're going to share battle this month against the 49ers report. Speaking of teams that don't always handle their money right. Good lead right now. Let's expand that lead. Share today's video if you haven't already done so. Now, I think these two are no-brainers. Like, those just do them. Like, there's not much conversation to be had. This one has some conversation. That is DaRon Bland, the cornerback. And it might be an either-or scenario. The cornerback market has taken a step forward. Derek Stingley, J.C. Horn got big-time money. I am very curious what DaRon Bland would be searching for on the open market or in a extension. There's kind of some tier gaps between Pat Surtain and a extension adjustment coming for Jaire Alexander at 21. Diggs makes 19.4. I think a minimum top 10, probably more like top 5 money to get DaRon Bland done. Again, you can do that. It is a much larger cap hit of the next 2 years because he's a late-round pick, and there's nothing on the books next year. So that would actually eat into some of your salary cap space for the first time. What you're probably going to do here is pick. You're going to pick between Trayvon Diggs and pick between DaRon Bland. You cut Trayvon Diggs, you save $12 million. That probably ends up being your cap hit next year for DaRon Bland. It's actually probably a little bit less than that, but it's close enough that you just kind of keep Bland long-term, move on from Diggs. Savone Rebel takes over on the outside. And that's actually kind of 3 players that if you pick Bland over Diggs, that you're not actually impacting your cap numbers, really. Who would you rather keep? Because I think picking one is probably the correct path. DB for DaRon Bland, TD for Trayvon Diggs. How about the newest addition? That is George Pickens. And this one very much feels like, and they've really outright said, they're not going to do an extension right now. So this will be a next, February, March conversation. I want to look at some of the notable contracts here. Obviously, Jamar Chase is number 1. CeeDee Lamb is number 3. New Steeler DK Metcalf is number 4. I think Brandon Ayuk, as one of the more recent deals, is worth mentioning. T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, Chris Godwin coming off injury, by the way, are all players who are like the 2 on their team. They're a good 2. They could be a 1 elsewhere, but they're a 2. Jerry Jeudy got traded for and got paid, but that was coming off not as good production. Christian Kirk once got $18 million. Like, if I'm Pickens' camp, I'm asking for Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, minimum Devonta Smith money. If I'm Dallas, I probably don't want to commit to that right now. So it certainly feels like all sides are going to let this be a prove-it deal. And I'm actually on board with that. As, again, someone who is arguing, pay. I'm actually okay allowing this one to play out. Because I think the player is very much in favor of that, and I get it. Like, if you're George Pickens, you're like, I get the best QB I've ever had. Like, I want to pay that. Like, I want to get myself a better chance there. So I think a possibility here is the franchise tag. Now, I don't like using the franchise tag because it gives you zero flexibility. It's $28 million at wide receiver. Defensive end is only 26.5 because they're at linebacker and defensive end is split. So some of those big contracts just kind of get spaced out across the 2 there. Corner's 22. Tight end, we'll talk about Jake Ferguson here in a second, is $16 million. I think you have one franchise tag. I'd rather not use it. I could see it being used, though, on George Pickens. But a lot of that depends on how this year plays out. And that's very much a TBD thing. Again, that would take up a big chunk of your cap space, right? Now, we will have more updates on trades and news and rumors and contracts that hopefully get signed soon. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. YouTube.com/CowboysTV. Let's go to Jake Ferguson. This one is also, I think, in a little bit different of a bucket. Pickens is not looking for a team-friendly deal. You're going to have to pick one between Bland and Diggs probably. Micah, Tyler Smith are going to be top-of-the-market guys. I don't think Jake Ferguson is. And I wonder if there is a team-friendly contract to be had here with Jake Ferguson. The tight end market has also changed a lot. Kittle and McBride got paid this offseason. I don't think anybody thinks Jake Ferguson should be getting $19+ million per year. After this past year, didn't have a very good season. But you're probably staring on the barrel of he's as good as Dalton Schultz is, I think, even with coming off the bad year. And that was a several-year-ago contract. So the salary cap inflation kind of turns that into $14, $15, $16 million. Now, maybe you trust Ferguson to bounce back, and maybe he'll sign off on that team-friendly deal. He's kind of made some comments that, like, align with what the Jones boys like of it's a privilege to wear the star, and, like, this caliber of player. Sometimes the Cowboys have made mistakes paying them. Has normally been like the surprise extension that got done early. Jalen Smith, Lyle Collins. Like that, there's risk with it. There's a lot of risk with it. And if you tag Pickens, I think you can make a real argument, let's try cheaper at tight end and not pay for like average to above average play. But I think this is kind of like the upside angle of like getting the team-friendly deal. Now, I think these are both extremely valid questions. Do you want to re-sign Jake Ferguson? K for keep, D for dump, you want to move on. Let me know in the comments of today's show. We'll mention the kicker too. How about that? Brandon Aubrey. This one for me is like actually kind of straightforward, but there is a but. And that is this. He is actually going to be a restricted free agent this upcoming season. So there actually is cheap team control here. If the Cowboys wanted, they have like it's a $5 million and change second round RFA tender. There's the franchise tag again then in 2026 if they wanted to go down that path. So like it's, or 2027, I guess. There's options there. Or they kind of do the RFA tender and then make him the highest paid kicker in the NFL. Like that would not surprise me. And right now that's beating out Harrison Butker. That's 4 years, 25 and change, 6.4 on average. He's an alien. I have never been a fan of paying kickers. He doesn't miss very much. You probably let this year play out, and then let's see what happens. So, who do you not want to extend? I think there are several names in there you can certainly put in. Like you're probably not going to pay all six. That's fine. There are other names you're not going to pay either. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Other top free agents. And I don't think these guys, maybe one or two come back. But, you tag or keep Pickens, Tolbert's gone. It's fine. Donovan Wilson. We'll see. He's kind of always been a boomer bust player. Sam Williams, I think, is gone. I don't think he's back next year. You've drafted too many defensive ends in round 2. Kenneth Murray, prove it year. Dante Fowler, we'll see. Those guys, I don't think anyone gets mad about them if they're not back either. $5 from Louise says, how about Moose for a baby name? My wife was a zookeeper, so she might like that. I'll see what she says. That one's fun, though. I appreciate it. So I think that was – we got one more super chat, too, from Paul. Oh, this is the one he resent. Perfect, Paul. Draft grades, the Pickens trade, do they change? I don't want to trade them. That's why I did off-season grades. Because it's like I want to keep the draft, and, like, the Pickens trade grade itself. The overall off-season grade does change. Now, if you want to, like, merge them together, then, yeah, like, it's definitely better, right? I'll say I think it kind of your draft grade next year is probably a little bit lower because you have a third-round pick. That's okay. But I think like the overall offseason, I think we all feel better about that one. Chris B, I'm super excited about the Pickens trade. It's actually nice to be happy about an offseason and have some hope back. CD and Pickens, fire emoji. Yeah, hope's kind of back. That makes it – that's the new feeling compared to what was last offseason, right? So final call for the pin poll today. Will the Cowboys make another notable move before camp? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Back live again on Monday with a live show and then schedule release on Wednesday. So keep your eyes out for that one. We'll probably get some details throughout early next week of like Cowboys doing this game on this date. We'll do shorts on those. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Hit that sub button at youtube.com/@CowboysTV. We got one more super chat. So hold on. I know that was super weird. Hold on. Let's go to Anthony P's super chat. before we move on here, because I did one. That one came in like right as we were signing off, so we'll get that one real quick here. I asked who gets more, Pitts or Ferguson, in terms of value, like if Pitts gets let go. As disappointing, which I think we would all pretty much agree with here, as Kyle Pitts has been relative to the expectations, there has been, exactly 1 year of their careers, the 3 years that Ferguson's been around, in which he has been more productive than Kyle Pitts. Now, the problem is the yardage dipped from 2021 to 2022 and dipped again last year from 2023 to 2024, has not lived up to expectations, but I think it is very much Kyle Pitts gets more. Plus, there is the boost of, former first-round pedigree. Like, early round guys still get paid. Like, that's how it goes, fair or not. So, I think Pitts, who, by the way, is still only entering his age 25 season, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like, he's been in the NFL longer, and Jake Ferguson, by the way, is already 26. I think Pitts has more value. So, thank you, Anthony. Now we'll sign off for real.